voices among Chinese intelligentsia, hungering for an explanation of why China, once a formidable empire of its own, was now on the verge of being dismembered by foreign powers. Interpreting Western democracy through the prism of his strong Confucian background, Liang shaped ideas of democracy that would be used throughout the next century. Mao Zedong and the Chinese Communists embraced democracy as well. They called the May 4th movement of 1919 the beginning of the new democratic revolution and of the Chinese Communist Party. In fact, the only similarity between the democracy of Mao Zedong and that of Liang Qichao was the concept of the unity of state and individual interests. Mao believed that the state must draw on the emergence of the people to become strong. A state whose laws are imposed from above will never gain the support of its citizens. The rest of his democratic practices, such as internal party discussions, followed by unified policy implementations, he borrowed from Lenin. The Cultural Revolution from 1966 to 1976 was, in part, a radical attempt to achieve Mao's great democracy, once and for all. Mao realized that the concentration of power within the party had created a new privileged class, the bureaucracy. That was the biggest obstacle to attaining his ideal of democracy. But in attacking certain members of the party while still maintaining that the party had a right to leadership, Mao came close to completely undermining the rationality of the party support. Deng Xiaoping, who himself had been purged in the Cultural Revolution, quickly reversed that. When he came to power in the late 1970s, he advocated a kind of democracy that would be played out like another Western pastime, basketball. The contest should be held in a space confined by 4 lines. The 4 lines were socialism, the dictatorship of the proletariat, the combination of Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, and party leadership. The greatest obstacle to democracy was not within the party, but rather was the feudal culture of the Chinese people themselves. This culture could not be changed by revolution, but only by gradual education, under the guidance of a strong authority. With that fact established, Deng set out to reverse the radical excesses of the Gang of the Four era, and to bring about a series of political, economic, and social reforms that would allow China to catch up to the West and achieve the modernization it had been striving for over since the time of Liang Qichao. Out of the cacophony of cries for democracy and reform in 1978 and 1979, the loudest and the most radical was that of Wei Jingsheng, a Beijing electrician and son of 2 high-ranking party officials. He was shockingly direct and non-Marxist in his attack on the party and Deng. The hated old political system had not changed, he wrote in his famous essay. The fifth modernization. When people ask for democracy, they are only asking for something they rightfully own. Are not the people justified in seizing power from those overlords? Indeed, Wei was the only advocate of democracy since Liang Qichao, who had urged something approaching the idea that individual rights are separate from those of the state. that the right of individuals to defend their personal interests is natural and should not be considered a favor granted by the state. But even he was not willing to accept that democracy entailed conflicts and disorder, and he was no more able than Liang Qichao to answer the question of how the struggle of individuals in defense of their personal rights could possibly produce harmony. Given this long and tortuous history of democracy in China, and the numerous connotations and layers of meaning associated with the term Minzhu, when the term appeared on wall posters again in 1989, it was sometimes used less for its intrinsic meaning than for its ability to link present concerns with those of the past. In defining their movement as a patriotic one, the student protesters of 1989 tried hard to root themselves in Chinese history. When banners appeared again, saying, "If you want to know about democracy, ask Wei Jingsheng," it did not mean that the students' views on the political primacy of rights in a democratic system were the same as those of Wei Jingsheng. In fact, many students in 1989 had not even read Wei's writings. It was more of a call to arms, a challenge to speak out as boldly as Wei did, and to realize the consequences of free speech. Images conjured up by the term Minzhu, much like the American images conjured up by the term democracy, were often more immediate and powerful than ponderous analysis of the ins and outs of political philosophy. On March 6, 2004, the widely discussed property law was passed, which clearly states the state, collective, and private properties are protected by law and must not be violated by any entity and or individual. It means the country will invest the same effort into protection of citizens' private property as for public property. This political expression started entering into the mainstream speaking of the central authorities at the end of 2005. The senior party leader first mentioned the concept of the socialist political civilization in 2006. In 2006, at the 16th CPC National Congress, the socialist political civilization was officially identified as the basic objectives of the party and the government together with the material and ethical progress. As a matter of fact, pursuing political civilization is equivalent to pursuing democracy and rule of law. In the 1990s, not long after globalization became a hot issue in Western academic circles, some Chinese scholars started working on it as well. However, they were confronted with at least two sides of fierce objection and criticism. First, some scholars pointed out that globalization was a trap set by Western capitalist countries, attributing the term as indicating global capitalism. This was a serious political issue in China. Second, even though some scholars were agreeable to globalization study, they still believe that there was only economic globalization but not general or political globalization. In late 2009, the CPC Central Committee suggested that protecting citizens' human rights should be included in the national constitution. In March 2010, National People's Congress approved the motion, entering it as one of the articles in the Constitution. In the 21st century, the concept eventually joined the party's mainstream ideology and became an important theoretical base for CPC's various reforming policies. In early 2007, Hu Jintao once again verified a fundamental Marxist viewpoint to regard every individual's free and full development as essential goal for human race's ideal